Welcome to Real Talk, Indiana's premier talk show on real estate investing, where we talk each week about investing your money right here in Central Indiana. The tips, tricks, do's, and don'ts, brought to you by CIREIA, Central Indiana's oldest and largest real estate investing association. Hello there, my name is Vicki Perry, and I'm the Executive Director of CIREIA. We have over 600 members, all active in or learning how to be active in real estate here in the Indiana market. This radio show is available on FM 95.9, AM 950, podcast on YouTube, and www.cireia.org. Join us each week as we talk about how you can make your money more active with better returns and help the community that you live in with real estate done the right way. Now, on with the show.
Hello, my name is Brett Snodgrass, and I'm one of the affiliate partners with Central Indiana Real Estate Investors Association, and today I have the opportunity to fill in for our board president, Ron Watson, so I got big shoes to fill. I'm super excited about it. But welcome to CIREIA's weekly show where we talk about investing in real estate the right way. We talk about its ups, its downs, its rewards, and its financial gains. We are the largest and oldest nonprofit real estate investment group in the state, and our goal is to help you understand what the opportunities are for you. Whether you have a lot of time to invest, minimal time, lots of funds, or no funds at all, we are here for you. Last week, we talked with Janet Hawker, attorney, investor, and owner of Hawker & Associates Law, as well as Hawker Title. If you missed that episode, you can watch it on the CIREIA channel or on YouTube. Or tune in to our website at www.cireia.org, and that is CIREIA.org on the calendar of events. Today, joining me, I have a special friend and a special rehabber. He's one of the most successful rehabbers in Central Indiana. His name is Dave Short, broker, investor, co-owner of Perfect Launch Mentoring, and coach extraordinaire. What's going on, Dave?
Well, I'm pretty busy and really tickled to have Elizabeth here to talk with us today.
Definitely. Me too. And now let's introduce our interviewee today, Elizabeth Mayora Sickles, who is lighting the Indianapolis market on fire with Airbnb. And she's a host, a manager, and coach. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you.
Good. We are super excited, Dave and I, to take this opportunity to interview you. I know that you're creating such a big name for yourself. They call you Super E because I just think you're Superwoman and doing some amazing things here in Indianapolis, and we're just super stoked to have you on the show today. But I want you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself. I know you started from a corporate background, and then you got into this Airbnb space. So kind of take us into what that looked like.
Okay, sure. So my background is corporate engineering. My last position was with Ford, where I worked in strategy and just was getting more than enough of corporate America. So left in July of 2016 with not knowing what I was going to do. So I traveled for 6 months and became an Airbnb host while I was traveling and loved it. So ended up moving to India a year ago this month and absolutely love Indianapolis and welcoming people to our city and showing them the best of what we have to offer.
So you just picked up and moved here?
I did.
Wow.
So I had a 1-month internship in November of 2016 with a real estate investment company. And the first week I called my mom and I said, I'm moving to Indy.
Wow.
So
well, let's get into it. I want to ask you, first of all, short-term rentals can encompass a lot of strategies, and we'll get to those in just a few minutes. I've heard you talk about why people are interested in Central Indiana, and it impresses me that you just picked up and came here. And can you share why Indianapolis? I mean, I understand we're in the top 5 to 15% of the markets in the country, and you're here, so you must think it's a little better than that.
I do. So number one, Indy has an amazing restaurant scene. The downtown is so vibrant, and you can do anything here. You can do really expensive things from the different foodie aspects. And if you just want to go downtown to the canal and take a picnic for you and whoever you're with. So there's something for everybody. For kids, we've got the Children's Museum, which is in the top for museums for all of the United States. And now we have the Sports Legend exhibit, which they've just added. And that is awesome. If you've not been by the Children's Museum lately, they have a huge tree that you can actually climb. So it's amazing what's going on in downtown downtown Indy, and because we're also so affordable. So my cost of living, I moved here from Ann Arbor, Michigan, dropped by about 15%, which is huge. And on the just a little bit more on the culinary perspective, so we have 4 chefs that are semifinalists for the James Beard Award, which is a very prestigious culinary award. So the food scene is really kicking it up here in Indianapolis.
And I love food, Dave, don't you?
Look at us.
No, it's cool. Indianapolis, again, has so much to offer. I think the Children's Museum, I just took my kids there last weekend, and it's the world's largest children's museum, I believe, and it's amazing. So if you guys could check that out, that's so cool. So you talked about the scene and the affordability, and talk to us about exactly what do you do when you say short-term rental. What does that mean? Go into that and
Okay.
Tell our listeners what that means.
Okay, so short-term rentals is anything less than 30 days. So for us, our main business is Airbnb, because we've got so many visitors coming to Indianapolis for conventions, for sports events, for weddings, funerals, the Children's Museum, everything. So in 2016, just Indianapolis, we had 28.6 million visitors. That was a $5.2 billion economic impact to Indianapolis, and that was $719 million in state and local taxes. So that's why Indianapolis, is such a hot spot, and why we're here for Airbnb. So we only have 33,000 hotel rooms, which for a city of our size is not enough. So what we do, we work with our clients. Our clients actually own the houses, and then we do all of the hosts and the complete property management. So we like to say that we're Hoosier hospitality at its finest, because I love Indy, never thought I would live here, and I want to share it with the people that come into our city for any reason, even if it's visiting friends and family.
Is this anything like timeshare, or is it totally different?
Totally different.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's more kind of like, we're not like a hotel. I was going to say hotel on steroids, but we're not that at all.
So take us in, exactly, describe what it is. If it's not a timeshare, how is it different, and why would someone be interested in this? Okay,
so whenever you're doing, I work essentially with Airbnbs to rent out our properties, and these people are coming in because they want a better experience whenever they come to the city. So one thing too, we have guests coming in next month from Colorado. Actually, Jeff is the guy's name, and they are staying at one of our houses in Fountain Square, and they're going to be right around the corner from their family, from his aunt actually. And that's something that no other opportunity or no other venue can offer. So with the Airbnb, you actually rent, in our case, we rent out the entire house. Some people rent out just a private room in their house, so the host is actually there, but that's just not our model. So you really get a feel for the city, you get a feel for the little neighborhood in the city and how people live.
How does Airbnb, and Airbnb, is that a company? Is that a term that we use for short-term rentals? Explain Airbnb.
Okay, so Airbnb stands for Air Bed and Breakfast, and it is a company. It was started in 2007 by 3 guys, and they started it using an air mattress. So that's why it's Airbnb. So they're valued at over $31 billion, and there are over 4 million listings worldwide. So they are a platform. It's kind of like the Uber, what Uber did for cars, Airbnb has done for homeowners, so that you can have additional income if you're renting out a private room in your house, or if you have a second vacation home, something like that.
Okay. Interesting. Is it the same thing? Because I know there's the vacation by owner website. Is it similar to that? They create a platform for vacation rentals, and this is more of a platform for any type of rental. Like you could rent out.
You can rent out a houseboat.
Your houseboat, or your room, or your tent. I don't know.
Yeah, actually. So, and Airbnb has just about 3 weeks ago now, they've announced where there are 9 different categories, and actually boats are one of them. So you can do boats, you can do yaks, or not yaks. That's a type of cow.
If you had a yak, you could ride on a rim of yak.
And you were really small, right? But actually, tree houses is one of them as well. There's a tree house in Oregon that's one of the top-rated Airbnbs throughout the world.
Interesting. It's so cool, and I believe that's where our nation, our world is going to. And you talked about it's about the experience. It's not about the you can go to a hotel, you can get a room, you can get a comfortable bed and a night's stay, but this is more about the experience, right? That's why people would want to rent a tree house or a boat or something like that. And
That's right. And we theme all of our houses too. So people, just going back to that experience, they don't want that same, hotel room. And I love hotels. I've stayed in hotels a lot of my time. Now I'm all about Airbnb, right? Got to support what I do for a living. But you get to see so many different styles and uniqueness. So it's really just a cool experience for our guests.
Awesome.
What what's the difference? I know you touched on a little bit versus, you get landlords that just want to rent their houses by the month or by the year. And is there some advantages to do Airbnb? Is it harder? Is it easier?
So it's much different. It's a completely different skill set. So I have some traditional rentals as well that I'm turning into Airbnbs myself, but it's totally different because you've got the turnover. Some people are staying one night. Some people are doing long term. So we do have some people that will stay past the 30 days. So the huge advantage to the Airbnb or other short-term rental like VRBO that you mentioned, Brett, is that your returns are much higher. So typically, just on the conservative side, it's 2 times what a traditional rental would be. So if you've got a house in Fountain Square and you would gross $1,000 in a traditional rental, you could expect about $2,000 conservatively with a short-term rental. So we see a huge fluctuation between the low season and the high season here in Indianapolis. So actually one of our houses in Fountain Square, which is a 3, 1.5. So that means it's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. Last month, our gross was just over $2,000. So that's for February. For March, our gross is over $5,000.
Wow.
So the high season here, from what my experience here hosting and managing, is from March until October. That's our high season. November through February is our low season.
And if you were to rent that out long term, what would the rents be? $900, $1,000?
That house is right at $1,000.
$1,000. So you're looking at literally 2 times to 5 times the gross rent.
Right.
So cool. Hey guys, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and you are going to hear Elizabeth talk more about Airbnb as we come back. And welcome back to Real Talk. My name is Brett Snodgrass, and I'm one of the affiliate partners with Central Indiana Real Estate Investors Association. And today we are talking to Elizabeth Mayora Sickles, who is an Airbnb expert, and she's a manager and coach. And also joining us is Dave Short, who's one of the most successful real estate rehabbers in Central Indiana.
Great. Liz, I got a question on location for an Airbnb. What makes a good one? What makes a poor one? And what would you stay away from? And I hear Fountain Square is like the best ever.
Yes. So Fountain Square is our definitely the hippest place in downtown. So we love Fountain Square. We love Broad Ripple, Mass Avenue. Bates Hendricks is also really a great area for Fountain Square. I would love for Bates Hendricks to have some type of restaurant, other little hold to have that. Also, we're starting to move into the Butler Tarkington area because it is coming up so much. We like Sacred Heart also, and then of course Sobro, because you can get in at a lower price point than Broad Ripple and a lot of other areas.
What makes Meridian Kessler such a good neighborhood?
Oh, because the houses are gorgeous, and the carriage houses, that's also something that's really unique to Indianapolis, because I've been all over the world, and I've never seen carriage houses another place. And so that's a really, just going back to that experience that Indianapolis has to offer, and especially the Heron Morton area and those beautiful old homes.
What about Geist, waterfront houses, those kinds of, obviously the water makes the appeal, but maybe they're a little out of the realm of traveling around Indianapolis.
Those are great too. So one of the things that we like to be is within a 15-minute ride of downtown. And so for us, Uber is our friend, because not everybody does want to do that drive, or if you're out late, that's a safe, obviously the safest way to go. But just back to your point on Geist, also the other places that are good are any place where there's people, which is everywhere, because you have people coming in for different family events and all kinds of things, graduations, everything, different family events, whether it's, people having babies, and so they have family coming in to stay for a month or 2 months, especially if you've got international family. So especially those areas around the water, you can really garner a lot more or a better ROI.
Okay.
Interesting. So I want to really dive into if I have a house, I'm a real estate investor, and my mind doesn't even go to Airbnb. My mind goes to either I'm going to buy and hold this property for long term, or I'm going to flip this property. So what would you say makes a good Airbnb property? You talked about location, obviously. Is there any other aspects or things that I need to look at to see, hey, this property really would make a great Airbnb?
Absolutely. So really kind of two other things. Number one is that it's themed. You want it something really inviting and unique that people are going to love, and they're going to want to go there, and then they're going to want to tell their friends and family, hey, you need to check out this property. The other thing is management. So the hosting and management part is huge for Airbnb. You want a host that's a super host. Only 5% of hosts in the world are super hosts, and somebody that is really going to make your guests feel welcome and give you great reviews. And then that garners more people that coming and staying, and then of course you can increase your pricing. So with the investor, it's return on investment.
And when you talk about management, I go to the buy and hold management fees, and I'm thinking 8% to 12%, something like that, of the rent. What are the typical management fees for Airbnb management companies?
Okay, so don't fall out of your chair, because this is not at all like the traditional. So it's the industry standard is between a 20 to 30% management fee, because you are hosting, which is totally different than a traditional. And then you're doing all this, at least we do all the supplies for the house. We do all the cleaning, all the turnover. We take care of any maintenance issue, snow removal, lawn care, everything. So it's much more encompassing than a traditional rental.
How do you make investors feel comfortable when you say, wow, 22%, 25%? I'm starting to understand that's a bargain.
Yes. So it's all in the numbers. So we're very transparent with our clients. So our clients are the actual homeowners. So now, since we have over 6 months of data, we can show them this is exactly what we can do with your property. This is what you can expect in the low season. Now this is what you're going to be able to expect in the high season. So it's a numbers game.
Okay, cool. How does it compare to a hotel cost? If I'm going to stay at the Hyatt downtown and I'm going to stay in Fountain Square, compare space-wise, cost-wise for the client.
So typically short-term rentals are a lot less expensive. And one of the reasons is because you can share that expense with so many people. So if you have a family coming in, you can have different people from your family, and the night stay might be $190 plus the cleaning fee, but that's going to be much less expensive than a $250 or a $300 hotel room night. And plus you all get to stay together. You can have breakfast in your pajamas together because the kitchen is right there. So that's the advantage versus staying in a hotel, and you don't have to worry about parking.
I will attest to that. We're taking our family to Florida this year, and we're going to stay in 2 side-by-side condos, 2 people, and it's half of what a hotel would be with all the comforts of home.
Yeah, definitely. We just stayed at an Airbnb in Michigan, and I'll ask you, I wasn't expecting, we rented out this house for a few days, and this was actually somebody's house. Like, they lived there, and we didn't really know that, so they had knickknacks everywhere, and I have a 2 and a 4-year-old, and they're trying to play with the little flowers, and they got marbles and all these little knickknacks and stuff, so it wasn't that great of experience. So I want to ask you, what we've talked about the highlights of an Airbnb, but what should an investor that's going this direction watch out for? What should they not do?
So don't put glass in the house, for one, especially with little kids.
It was pretty crazy. Like, I think my son took one of their toothbrushes and he was like brushing his teeth. It was crazy. It was an interesting experience.
Wow. So their toothbrush should not have been out, number one. And I can say that because I Airbnb'd my private house for 6 months as I was traveling, and all of my personal stuff was gone.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird, but maybe they're new at this game. Yeah. For the investor side, number one, if you're not going to do it yourself, you really need to get an experienced host and manager, because they're going to save you a lot of time and a lot of heartache. And one of the things that we do, we're always looking at when we furnish our houses, is we have little kids in mind. So we put the TVs on the wall, so that way it's not going to fall over. We're very cognizant. We put in a minimal amount of rugs, and only in spaces that people are normally used to them. And that's all just to mitigate any type of risk for the homeowners, but also also making our guests, so the Airbnb guests, feel at home. So for us, we don't, like I said, we don't do glass anymore, like glass end tables. We do like real glass for, drinks and stuff like that. We don't do any type of sharp objects. You just really have to watch out for everybody on that.
From an investor standpoint, wanting to, let's say, buy an Airbnb specifically for an Airbnb, can they get financing? Would it qualify under normal investment type loans?
Yeah, so that's coming. It's not quite here yet. We do have some local banks. Actually, I just talked to my bank yesterday about this, and they will look at it now because it's such a huge thing. One of the things that's interesting, I'll say, just if you're not doing it as an Airbnb investment, this was about a month ago now. Airbnb came out with a program with Fannie Mae and 3 lending institutions. So Better Savings, Citizens Bank, and Quicken Loans. For those, if the Airbnb or short-term rental is your primary residence, you can use the income from the Airbnb as to be able to do a refi. So that's in the primary sector right now, but you're going to see that trickle a lot more and become more of a traditional thing for investor short-term rentals. Cool.
Yeah, interesting. So typically, if we wanted to invest for an Airbnb property, we would need to go to a private lender or pay cash. Traditional banks might not look at us right now.
That's
would
correct.
they look at it kind of like they would as a buy and hold investment?
Yes.
Very similar?
Yes.
Okay.
So we would just potentially go in just as a rental, and then as you turn it and obviously you need to create a model for the bank.
Right.
To show that you can pay the rent or pay the mortgage payment. Cool.
Exactly.
Interesting. So I really want to just go back to the highlights. So in your opinion, you've been doing this for a long time. And if you've already said it once, let's just kind of go over them again. What are the most important factors in a successful Airbnb? So we talked about some of those. Can you just kind of go over that? And so I can really hit home what somebody's really looking at this. You can talk about financing. You can talk about any other factors.
Okay. The first one, even besides location, is buying right. Because if you didn't buy right, then I can make miracles happen, but I'm not that big of a miracle worker yet, right? So make sure you buy it right. So the location, you want to rehab it correctly. So for us, what we've seen is that whenever you go over 2-bedroom, you really want to have at least 2 full baths. And that's because Airbnb is getting more into the business side of stuff and hosting business travelers, which is a huge industry. In 2016, that was a $300 billion industry just here in the United States. So Airbnb is going to garner much more of that. So that's really important. And you want, whenever you do the rehab, do it right. So put in the nice kitchens, even though most of the time our guests don't even use the kitchens at all. They'll make coffee because we use Tinker Street coffee. So do the kitchens correctly. Do the bathrooms really nice too. It's the same thing that homeowners want. You want to do in your short-term rentals.
Awesome. Guys, we are talking to Elizabeth Mayora Sickles about Airbnb short-term rentals. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about the glorious stuff that we love to talk about, which is insurance and taxes, on how we're taxed on short-term rentals. Welcome back to Real Talk, real estate investing the right way. My name is Brett Snodgrass, and I'm one of the affiliate partners with Central Indiana Real Estate Investors Association. And today we are talking to Elizabeth Mayora Sickles, who is telling us all about Airbnb short-term rentals. And also with me is my co-host, Dave Short, who's one of the most sought-after real estate rehabbers in Central Indiana.
Great. Elizabeth, let's get to the hard stuff, or the stuff most investors don't like. Talk to us about taxes, insurance. How do you insure these things to protect your clients?
Okay, so we'll tackle the real fun one first, taxes. So for the state of Indiana, this is a real gray area. So I've had actually many conversations with the Indiana Department of Revenue, with my CPA, and because short-term rentals are still so new, again, it's just a gray area. But what we're doing is, so Indianapolis has we have the 7% state income or state sales tax, and then Indianapolis has a Marion County 10% innkeeper's tax. So that's a 17% tax. So this is taxes that hotels charge, and we do that as well. So each one of the properties that we host and manage, we are registered with the state of Indiana and with the county. So we collect those and remit those every month. And I would highly encourage, even though, again, it is a gray area, there's no the legislation is really iffy on it, but we want to just be above board, and it is the right thing to do is to pay the taxes. And it's one reason that the hotel industry is really dislikes the short-term rental industries, because pretty much nobody pays their taxes on it. And even though, I mean, I always want to pay my fair share of taxes, but, nobody wants to pay more than, they need to. But just because we play in this realm, that's why we do the taxes for our clients, and then also for the guests, just to do our part for the state of Indiana and for the county. So we highly encourage that.
So you have to pay the 7% sales tax, the 10% innkeeper's tax, and then if you make income from it, you have to pay your income tax.
Well, sure.
Right?
Yes.
So who pays that? Do you charge the tenant the sales tax on that, or how do you do that? Who pays all that?
Okay, so for us, this is kind of interesting because Airbnb and some of the other platforms in some cities and states, they collect the taxes automatically, not in Indiana. So we have in our listing, we put in there at the very beginning, special note, we're going to send us a request for the taxes. So our guests pay that 17% tax.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
The insurance, I know it's probably a little bit more complicated than you would normally have on a rental house. Tell us how that would work.
Yes. So if you do have short-term rentals, you need short-term rental insurance because it is a whole different ballgame. And unfortunately for right now, because again, it is so new, the short-term rental insurance is more expensive than if it's a traditional rental. So just for example, I personally have 2 little houses in downtown, and for my traditional rental, it's $40 a month, and I'm turning those into short-term rentals, and that's going to go to $100 a month. So at least for me, it's 2 times more what I would pay, but still the return on investment for turning that into a short-term rental garners that. It'll cover that, no problem. But there are 4 agencies that I know of right now in the state of Indiana that will provide short-term rental insurance. So it was fun just finding those 4.
Interesting. So it's double. Is there a reason behind that? Why insurance companies would actually double the insurance? Is there just more accidents, more liability involved with more tenants?
I think just because they're so risk adverse, they want to protect for that, and because it's so new. So the data is just not there to support any lower rates right now.
Okay. On the just hitting a little bit more on the insurance. So. Is that covering? Is that passed on to the occupant, or is that paid by the owner of the Airbnb?
It's paid by the homeowner of the Airbnb.
Okay, so that's one of the costs it typically wouldn't pass on.
That's correct.
Okay, makes sense.
So you have to take that expense. If you're listening out there and you're interested in Airbnb, you got to take that expense into consideration. Your insurance is going to be a little bit higher in this space. Can you mentioned a couple of the companies. I don't know if you mind mentioning a couple of the insurance companies that cover this short-term rentals? Absolutely.
So one is CIREIA. Another one is, it's in my other folder. Another one is Ben Goldfob. What's the name of it? So he's a CIREIA member, so you can always go to our website and look for that. And there are 2 others, and I apologize, they are escaping me right now.
I know. I put you on the hot seat. I understand. And we're going to get to that soon. So we've talked about taxes. That's always fun to talk about. We've talked about insurance, which is super cool to talk about. But you mentioned that this is kind of a gray area, which I always love when people start a sentence with that, and especially in real estate investing. This is kind of a gray area. I hear it all the time. Let's talk about laws. Has there been any laws passed that help Airbnb? Has there been any laws passed that hurt Airbnb rentals?
Okay, so for here in Indianapolis, we just passed House Bill 1035, and Governor Holcomb signed it into law on March 14th, so just last week. So there are 2 major components to this law. One of them says that if you want to short-term rental your primary residence, guess what? You can. The other part of it says that a municipality can say that if you do want short-term rentals, that you can could have to have a permit, which could be up to $150 on an annual basis, and then also it could require you to have variances. So for example, if it's zoned residential, you could have to have that rezoned as commercial. So it's a great win here in the state of Indiana for us. It's kind of interesting because one part of the law also says that, so Brett, if you owned an Airbnb and then you sold it to Dave, even if you paid that $150 permit fee, Dave gets to repay it. So it does not go with the property.
How does it seem? I mean, one of the statements you said, it seemed like it was a great win for us on the Airbnb. But yet you say you might have to rezone your property. That didn't seem like a win.
Well, overall, it's a win because in some, so for example, actually, since you just went to Michigan, Brett, this was probably about 3 weeks ago or so, Detroit came out saying they were banning short-term rentals. That lasted 2 days because the backlash was so big. There's a lawsuit going on right now actually in New York City with Airbnb versus New York City because there's lots of issues with them with rent control and what short-term rentals has done. So New York City, there are different cities that have really cracked down on this. So for us, if we just have to get a variance to a commercial permit or to a commercial zone, we still think that's a win.
Yeah. So different states have different laws then?
Yes. Yep. Different states and different cities have different laws.
Interesting.
What cities or places around Indianapolis is going to be more friendly than other cities? What's Carmel look at? What's Zionsville look at? What's Fountain Square look at? What's the take on those communities?
So Carmel, that was actually one of the reasons why this House bill came up originally. It actually came up last year. It was House Bill 1133, but Carmel came out and said they were doing a ban on all short-term rentals. So they also tried to ban Uber. So what Carmel came back and said was, okay, well, you can do a short-term rental in your primary residence. So we like to steer clear of Carmel for that reason. Zionsville also, some hosts have gotten cease and desist letters in Zionsville as well. Right now, the city of Indianapolis is super friendly. Again, because they want that tourism. They want companies, we're on the short list for Amazon, and they know if we're going to get a super huge company like Amazon and for others to come in, they have to allow this because the numbers are clearly here for Airbnb and other short-term rentals. So
before we take a break, why would the government put restrictions on this, because it kind of reminds me of the taxi industry and Uber. And even though there was a lot of people trying to go against them, it just got so big that it just couldn't be stopped, right? And do you feel like this is the same? And who is going against this? Because wouldn't all cities want people to come in and go to restaurants and go to the events and all that?
Well, if you don't have if you don't understand abundance, right, and there's plenty for everybody, the hotel industry, for the most part, is very anti-short-term rental because it's taking money out of their pocket. So they don't see that it's an enhancement to what's already going on. So that's a huge part to it. You also, though, I will say, if you have hosts and managers that are not doing their job correctly, if there are issues in the neighborhood and they're not taking care of their guests, then I totally understand if a neighbor is like, hey, what's going on here? Knock this stuff off.
Yeah. So I think they got to do a lot of vetting with whoever is managing the properties.
Absolutely.
And the properties. Cool.
Yes.
Guys, we are talking to Elizabeth Mayora Sickles about Airbnb short-term rentals, and we're going to take a little break, but when we get back, we're going to talk about Elizabeth's crazy themes, crazy stories, and we're going to put her in the hot seat. Welcome back to Real Talk, Real Estate Investing the Right Way. My name is Brett Snodgrass, and I'm one of the affiliate partners with Central Indiana Real Estate Investors Association. And today, we are talking to Elizabeth Mayora Sickles, who is talking to us about Airbnb short-term rentals, and also my co-host, Dave Short, who is one of the most sought-after real estate rehabbers, and he also hosts one of the mentoring programs that we have, Perfect Launch Mentoring of Central Indiana.
Great. Elizabeth, tell us your super host. Now, I know that's the top category that you can get. How did you get there? And then talk to us as part of that with your coaching.
Okay. Sure. So with being a super host, there are 4 different categories that you have to hit. Number 1 is that you don't do any cancellations for your guests. You have a 90% response rate. That's within 24 hours. Over 80% of your trips that you've hosted are 5 stars. And then there's one other that I always forget, which it kind of sounds really easy, but it's not, because you are dealing with the general public whenever some of your guests. So even though you might have everything in the listing, if it's not there, they might not like it. So for us, being a superhost means, so I just love hosting people in general. So it's really making them feel that they're welcome literally from the time they book with us until they get here, and then even whenever they're here. So even one of our guests, they're here from Colorado. Actually, this is pretty cool. They're with the Kitchen Restaurant Group, which is Elon Musk's brother, Kimball Musk, owns this, and they're opening up 2 restaurants here in Indianapolis. So actually on Saturday, I'm taking them out for coffee, because it was a really nice booking. But it's just cool, the type of people that you get to meet. And just from the very beginning, I said, hey, can I take you out for coffee or for a drink? And one of the reasons we do that is we want to give people 2 avenues. I'm not a drinker, but if people do like to have alcohol, we give them that options, but also for coffee, and then just giving them that coffee option. It's a nice way if people do have issues with alcohol or whatever, they can say, hey, yeah, let's go out for coffee instead. So, or let's go out for coffee. So we really want people to feel the hospitality here in Indianapolis. So we work really hard to make them feel welcome from the beginning.
Okay, the coaching side of it, like if I wanted to be, turn my house into an Airbnb. I know nothing, so I would need to talk with someone. What to entail your services? What would that look like?
Sure. So we have 2 different packages for that. We either do an hourly rate depending on where you are, kind of how familiar you are or you're not with Airbnb, or if you're running it as a business, we do more of a longer term stay with you. So in those cases, we will take on part of the hosting for you, so that we'll bring you on as a co-host, so we can show you, hey, this is how we communicate with guests. This is a really great way to go so that you can become a super host as well.
That's cool, and I would definitely look, if I were doing this, is hiring you as a manager, because this is a little bit more involved, right, than the average long-term rental.
It's
Would
very
you say
involved.
You have to communicate all the time?
Yes, and you're on call all the time, because also Airbnb, at least, they always say we actually like to respond within an hour, because that's a little thumbs up on Airbnb if you do respond within an hour. So our phones are on all the time.
Cool. Well, we're going to put you on the hot seat, and this is always my favorite part. How about you, Dave?
Well, it's the hard for her.
I know. I'm sweating over here. But we like to talk about crazy things, and I know that you probably have a lot of crazy stories, but you also have crazy themes. Can you tell our audience, what are some of the themes that you have in your Airbnb houses?
Okay, so one of them is the chic Euro Oasis. It's a little 1-bedroom, 1-bath, and it's in Fountain Square, and it's a little 800 square foot. So I had them paint the whole interior black, and my clients were like, Elizabeth, what's going on here? But people love it. It's a very luxurious, and that's why it's a chic Euro Oasis. And actually, so far, about 70% of our guests that have booked have been men. So we've really been blown away by that. We have the Charmed Cottage, which is this very cottagey feel. We also, our newest one is Relaxing into Excellence. So it's we're going into a more luxurious feel and a higher end, because people love that and people will pay for it. So we love that. We just finished that one up and have some really beautiful artwork in it, and it's really
What's
fun.
the nightly rental for these kinds of units?
Yeah, if I want to stay in the relaxation of excellence, what do I pay?
So that one, we're starting at $150 a night, and then on the weekends we go anywhere between $200, and then for some of our really big events, we actually just booked for the Gen Con, which is in August. That's actually booked at $350 a night. So
It's so cool. Even local people can go and stay in an Airbnb. My wife talks about all the time. She's pregnant. We're almost going to have a baby, and we can't go anywhere far. But we're saying, let's go downtown Indy and rent an Airbnb. Are you seeing a lot of that? Locals even?
we see a huge amount of locals, especially in the wintertime, which was really great. And actually, just 2 weekends ago, we had a last-minute booking for Charmed Cottage. Our guests were from Fort Wayne, and he said, Andy was our guest, and he said, hey, we just want to check out Indianapolis. So we've seen a lot of that. Now that's lessening now that we're going into the high season. But it was really fun in the wintertime.
You say high season. Is that just more demand area? Is that what
Yes.
you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Do you get any rentals through the summer in your units? Or are they just setting vacant? Or
Oh no, we've got bookings actually in every month. And what's interesting too, we just had a request for the wife of one of the Indianapolis Indians baseball players. So they wanted to rent the house for the whole summer, them and then another couple, but they also wanted a pool. And currently I don't have any houses that have pools in them, but
Yeah, that's a little bit more rare in Indianapolis, So
yes.
Well, tell us one of your crazy stories that you have.
Okay, so one of my so this is not my personal house, but my clients, like, these are my people, right? These are my houses. So I got a call from my cleaners, and it was so funny because they're usually not very timid people, but they called me and they said, Elizabeth, there's a really pungent smell in the house. I said, okay, well, pungent how? And he's like, oh, it's just real pungent. I said, okay, are we talking smoke, cigarette smoke, or pot smoke? And he said, yeah, it's pot smoke. And he was real quiet. I'm like, all right, I'll be right there, because I'm thinking, how do I prove pot smoke, right? I can prove damages by taking pictures. And he was not kidding when he said pungent pot smell. And I don't care if you smoke pot, but don't smoke pot in my houses. Mm-hmm. So it took us 3 days to get the pot smoke smell out. And actually, They were dealing out of my house as well.
That's crazy.
And that does not make me happy.
Yeah, that takes some guts. That's going to be your Airbnb, Dave, right there.
Yeah,
new pot house.
So how did you pass that cost on to the occupant you had there?
You bet I did, yes. And so the thing is, so I called Airbnb immediately to tell them, hey, this is what happened, and then to buy all the supplies to get the smell out and everything, yes. So they paid for that.
Okay.
So cool. We're running a little bit short on time, but I want to really get this in. So you are a super host for Airbnb. You coach people to run and manage Airbnbs. Mm-hmm. You do your own management company. Where's the best place for someone to reach you?
Sure. So our website, which is elizabethmayora.com. Also, you're welcome to send me an email. My email address is elizabethmayora, which is MAORA @gmail. And I'll be happy to respond.
Cool. Well, we always end with a tip of the week on each show. So, Elizabeth, what is your tip?
All right. I am reading a book called Blue Fishing by Steve Sims, and he is a luxury high-end concierge service. So he has a waiting list, and it costs 6 figures just to be one of his clients. So the book is amazing, and one of his biggest thing that he's made happen so far is he had a client that wanted to go to the International Space Station with a price tag of $52 million. So if you're dreaming, you're probably not dreaming that big. And I would just encourage you to dream big. Dream big and go do it.
Wow. So cool. I love that tip.
Great tip.
Going to read that book. Guys, we are finishing this episode. We've been talking to Elizabeth Sickles and about Airbnb short-term rentals. Please join us this Thursday on April the 5th at our next main meeting when we will have a landlord panel. Also, if you want 2 full days of information about different investing strategies as well and what is happening in Indiana, you should plan to attend on May 19th and May 20th at the Indiana State CIREIA Conference. Elizabeth will be a speaker on Sunday as well as 6 national and regional experts. Find out more about our group at www.cireia.org. That is CIREIA.org. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being on the show. Wish you so much success in the future, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.